Hi, this is Steph Holstein. My evidence-based research topic is structured post-resuscitation debriefings. I chose this topic because my first day of my preceptorship was on the ICU and I was involved in a code blue situation. And my interpretation, or what I saw, was that the communication and teamwork were not very well established or effective or something. And I was surprised to see when the incident was over that everybody dispersed and went about their business and not another word was said. And I recognize that maybe I didn't see everything, or maybe people were contacted later about some sort of debriefing or checking in with how everybody was doing. But from what I saw, I didn't see it, and it did pique my interest. So I looked into hospital policies to see if something existed about debriefing any sort of traumatic event, and I couldn't find anything. So in my research topic or project here, I will be proposing a new policy for structured post-resuscitation debriefing. So the objectives, here we go. Objectives of this presentation are that the listener will be able to describe the two primary benefits of post-resuscitation debriefing programs, and also to describe the two kinds of debriefing programs, classifications of debriefing programs, which are hot and cold, and each of their benefits and limitations. So this policy is important for two overarching reasons. The first being the quality improvement and better patient outcomes, which in this case would be improved CPR quality that would promote increased survival and improved neurological outcomes for patients. And then also the health and wellness of providers, which the research is showing that debriefings enhance teamwork and job satisfaction and decrease compassion fatigue among nurses. So for the human significance of structured post-resuscitation debriefing programs, is that CPR quality is directly related to the patient outcome. And the foundation of the healthcare industry is improving patient outcomes. And so we have a responsibility to engage in ongoing improvement endeavors so that we can continue working towards the ultimate goal of providing quality patient care and improving people's health outcomes. So debriefing is not a new concept. It's been used in the military and aviation industries for decades. And I found this interesting video, and it is presenting a model that's called the flawless execution model. And this comes from military training and how they do debriefings and how they get better outcomes and reach goals. And so these people are taking what they learned in the military, and they're actually fighter pilots, and they are going around the world and teaching other industries to implement these same techniques to improve bottom lines and improve outcomes, which in our case is patient outcomes. So I'll get this video started. Here we go.
Wisefester, how's everybody doing this morning? Now come on, Wisefesters, I know Dallas is an exciting city, but that was weak and unacceptable. Let's try it one more time. How's everybody doing this morning? All right, much, much better. Well, my name is Commander Jim Murphy. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Afterburner. We're a group of men and women fighter pilots, no kidding, real fighter pilots, that travel around the country, actually around the world, talking to leaning forward, cutting-edge organizations and individuals just like you, getting you prepared for one thing and one thing only. And what do you think that is? Combat, right? Because we have a saying at Afterburner that business or trading is combat. Business is combat. And I want to ask each and every one of you a question. What is combat? Combat for me, for us as fighter pilots, is a rapidly changing, challenging, and sometimes hostile environment. I want you to think about your world for a minute. Is your world rapidly changing, challenging, and possibly even hostile, right? So that's why we're here today, because we believe that the tools and the techniques that the Air Force, Navy, and the Marines have taught us as frontline fighter pilots are tools and techniques that you can use to win in your rapidly changing, challenging, and let's hope never hostile environment.
Your threats to mission success, you will always lose the fight. Lose sight, lose the fight. It's true flying fighters, and it's true for you in the corporate real estate environment as well. Well, today, we're not only going to give you some tools to help you keep sight of your competition, we're going to teach you a process that will dramatically improve your execution. Once we plan, brief, execute, and we know our results, what does 90% of corporate America like to do next? Guess what? You're right. Nothing. Plan, brief, execute, Miller time. Or, in most cases, it's more like plan, brief, execute, and it's on to putting out the next fire or dealing with the next crisis of the day. Well, not in our world. After every single mission, we call time out and we hold a debrief, where we get together behind closed doors. We hash out what worked and what didn't. And we walk away with 1, 2, maybe even 3 key lessons learned. Things we never want to do again. Things we always want to incorporate into our plan. So that when we plan, brief, execute, debrief, we win on our battlefield. And folks, if you'll embrace this concept, I promise you'll continue to win on your battlefield as well.
Since when in life does everything ever go perfect? Never, right? Absolutely never. That's why we have step 6. Step 6 is to plan for contingencies, the what ifs. As fighter pilots, we spend over half of our time talking about the what ifs, the contingencies. The what if this happens, what are we going to do? As an example, what if Cruiser's the flight lead for this huge strike package going in to this unknown territory? I'm leading 20 other aircraft, and I get shot down by a surface-to-air missile. Does Jackie O take over as the flight lead, or does my entire team turn back and land to do it another day? What if the weather over the target is so bad that we can't drop these precision-guided munitions on this vacant building? What are we going to do? What if 12 MiG fighters show up on top of our strike package to take us out instead of the 6 that our intelligence officer told us were around? What if for X-Rite? What if at the end of Q1 you're 15% below plan? What are you going to do? What if Greytag rolls out a new product that competes directly with the product that you just recently rolled out and they're out there stomping you in the marketplace? What if one of your key accounts decides to cancel their forecast for the rest of the year? What are you going to do? See, we have a saying, flying fighters, and we say this: flexibility is the key to air power. And at Afterburner, we take that one step further and we say preparation is the key to flexibility. We do not manage by crisis, ever. We sit in a room just like this, sipping on a Coke in our planning phase and in our briefing phase, and we know exactly what we're going to do when we're merging with our competition at over 2,000 miles an hour. I know exactly what I'm going to do when my competition turns right and goes nose low, or they turn left and go nose high. We do not manage by crisis. If you want to eliminate surprises, you have to plan for change. The ability to adapt and change is truly the key to success.
Air pilot, I like to keep things pretty simple. At the end of the day, I want my number of takeoffs to equal my number of landings. Simple goal, right? If they don't, then something's gone wrong. I've probably had to eject out of my aircraft and ride a silk parachute down to the ground. We actually call it the silk letdown. You know, thinking about it, silk's a good word. Group, spell, silk. S-I-L-K. Very good. Group, what does a cow drink? M-I-L-K. You know, I'm pretty sure where I'm from in Kansas that cows drink water and give milk. But that's okay. I'm going to give you another try. This time when I ask you a question and you know the answer, I simply want you to raise your hand. No shouting it out. Raise your hand when you know what Y-E-S spells. This isn't a trick. Sorry, you had to know what Y-E-S spelled to get in here today. Okay, good. Put your hands down. This time raise your hand, and raise your hand only when you know what E-Y-E-S spells. Okay, Harvard grad over here. The rest of us are thinking about it. You got 2 of them. You're using them right now to look at me. Your eyes. In fact, I think I heard someone over here going, E-S, E-S, lips, what the hell does E-S spell? Well, don't feel too bad, because my daughter brought those home from school the other day to stump old Dad, and of course, I got both of them wrong. But I thought that they were pretty good examples of how you become channelized or focused on one particular thing, whether it's silk or YES. The surrounding things tend to break down and become degraded.
Successful image. I know that my father used to really concentrate on this. He would sit out there. We had to drive a great car. He had to have the right shoes. He had to have cufflinks. He had to have a ring that looked just right, a big watch. Had to have perfectly pressed shirt. And all those things are good, and a nice suit. All those things are good, but that was not only good, it was required. There was no way you were going to sell anything unless you portrayed this ultimate, successful, wealthy image. The customer has become more savvy. Our customer has proceeded along and learned and changed to adapt to our tactics every single day, year after year. And so we have to embrace what we call at Afterburner next generation selling, or next gen selling. And next gen selling starts with a strategy. Sales teams, sales divisions, sales people, sales companies rarely, if ever, start with a strategy.
Okay, so what I thought was so great about that video was their topic of combat in the rapidly changing, challenging, and sometimes hostile environment. And combat could be different for everybody or every industry, and I thought that was so applicable and is absolutely applicable to the healthcare industry and specifically code blue situations. Every point that the people presenting made, I thought was just awesome and very relevant. So that's why I shared it here. So going back to continue on with the human significance, the American Heart Association has set CPR guidelines that are in accordance with the current evidence, and there's new guidelines that were set recently, and the evidence shows that they're hard to achieve and are very rarely met. So the new focus is on chest compressions, and there are 4 variables of chest compressions that are of utmost importance in providing what the American Heart Association qualifies as excellent CPR and is relevant to survival. And so those variables are rate, which needs to be at a minimum of 100 compressions a minute. The depth needs to be 2 inches. Fraction is the amount of time during a code blue that chest compressions are performed, and that fraction needs to be at a minimum of 90% of the time, preferably more. And then the final variable is called leaning, and that refers to the chest recoil. So we want full recoil, we do not want leaning. And we need leaning to be less than 10% of the time, ideally 0, of course. But anyway, so those 4 variables, when the targets are reached by the provider providing chest compressions, we would call, the American Heart Association classifies that as excellent CPR. And so the nursing research is showing that structured debriefings are improving outcomes for both patients and providers. So the PICO question here is, the population is the critical care, specifically ICU and emergency department, patients and providers at St. Joseph Medical Center. The interventions, the implementation of a structured post-resuscitation debriefing program compared to not using a debriefing program. The outcomes and time frame are currently unknown. Okay, so there are 2 classifications of debriefing programs. Let's see, so sorry, my notes got mixed up here. Okay, so the 2 classifications are hot debriefing and cold debriefing. Hot debriefing occurs immediately after the incident, And cold debriefing occurs within the first few weeks following a resuscitation event. So, their benefits of hot debriefing is that generally speaking, it will be a little bit faster and easier to implement than a cold debriefing program. They often include surveys and questionnaires. Hot debriefing does allow providers to process and discuss the event before returning to their work assignment, which may or may not be beneficial for some people. That's an individual factor. Hot debriefing also allows for immediate intervention if safety issues are identified. And it also prevents hindsight bias from altering perceptions of the event. So as we know, hindsight's always 20/20. The limitations of hot debriefing is the fact that there's not enough time to obtain the quantitative CPR data on chest compressions. So hot debriefing focuses on people's perceptions of the event. And it also only involves the team of providers that were involved in that event. So some people may not be ready to learn immediately following an event. So like we learn in nursing school, we have to consider a patient's readiness to learn before we provide education. And that is the same here for providers. So for cold debriefing, the primary component of a cold debriefing is the quantitative review of the CPR variables. And so therefore, it is speculated among researchers that CPR quality improvement is more likely to result from cold debriefing than hot debriefing. And it also has the ability to reach further into the critical care team across the entire hospital, providing education that is both relevant and emotionally motivating, which is the basis of adult learning theory. So information in this setting is shared, and people can learn from each other's experiences. And we know that critical care teams are transient, and with each event could be a unique team. And so the more people that the education can be shared with and lessons can be learned, the better for patient outcomes. And then limitations is that it does take more time to plan, and it may not provide the support some people need to return to their work assignment immediately following a resuscitation event. However, researchers agree that the optimal time to hold a structured debriefing is unclear, and they also agree and recognize that there are benefits and limitations to each kind of debriefing. So I've got 3 research articles. The first is called the Interdisciplinary ICU Cardiac Arrest Debriefing Improves Survival Outcomes. And this was a 42-month study of a cold debriefing program implemented in a pediatric ICU. And they always held this debriefing within 3 weeks of the event and was a quantitative review of CPR efforts. The entire critical care team was involved. There was the event was being advertised to people, so it reached not just the people that were involved in the event, but all the team members in the hospital that participate in code events. And the results were improved CPR quality, which resulted in increased survival rates and increased neurological function. So here are some graphs, and this graph shows the CPR variables and how they improved before the debriefings were implemented and after or during. And then you can see that on the far right, the quote-unquote excellent CPR as defined by American Heart Association, which is when you meet all 4 of the targets. And that also improved. And then this next graph shows an improvement in 3 different variables related to CPR. The first is return of spontaneous circulation improved, survival to discharge improved, and good neurological function also improved. The second research article that I'm including is called Implementation of a Post-Code Pause, and this was a 1-year pilot study implemented in an emergency department. It consisted of a 7-question debriefing survey that also included a 10 to 15 second moment of silence. And this was a hot debriefing program and included this survey with open-ended questions that asked 5 questions related to the execution of the event. For example, it asked, what did the team do well? What interventions do you wish we had or wish we didn't have? Are you satisfied with the equipment and medications available? How can we improve? Did we support the family if they were present? And then 2 for the individual providers. How are you doing after the event? And what do you need to be able to return to work and be successful right now? I loved this quote included by an emergency department nurse, and this person said, "We restock our rooms and we restock our code carts. Now we take time to restock ourselves." I just thought that was a really good perspective and wanted to include that here. The results were all positive. The emergency department staff reported benefits and a desire to continue these debriefings. The moment of silence allowed people to pay homage to their patients if lives were lost, but it also allowed an opportunity to honor the work of the critical care team if a life was saved. It also gave them an opportunity to acknowledge their own needs, and staff felt better prepared to return to their work assignments and provide quality care to their patients. There was also a dramatic reduction in thoughts and feelings related to the event within the first 24 hours after it, and this was by nurses. Okay, so the third research article I'm including here is titled Acceptability and Implementation of Debriefings After Trauma Resuscitation. And this was a 3-month study implementing another hot debriefing program, but it included all hospital trauma resuscitation members. And they did a survey prior to implementing this program and also after. And it used the Likert scale, which is the 1 to 5, agree or disagree and all that stuff. So both surveys, the before and after one, included questions regarding patient safety, which were based on the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality safety questionnaires. And it also inquired about the effectiveness of the team. And then the post surveys included questions regarding the acceptability of the structured debriefings. And so there were a lot of benefits seen here as well. So improvements for role on the team of members. So there was increased role identity, increased team members' respect and support. The personal psychological safety was improved too. The cultivation of a safe learning environment led to increased ability to share opinions and thoughts, receive and give feedback, and report problems either to the group or to a supervisor. There was enhanced patient safety. The team operated more as a team and jumping in when people needed help and to provide quality patient care. There was also an increased agreeableness to implement safety measures and actually follow up and evaluate the effectiveness of those safety measures. There was improvements in team communication and collaboration related to patient care, addressing errors that had occurred in addition to error prevention, and as well as giving each other feedback. Overall, the debriefing participants felt that it was definitely worthwhile. It provided them an opportunity to identify and resolve problems and ambiguities in a safe learning environment. They also said that debriefings increased their awareness of communication barriers and how communication is so important to safety, patient safety. And participants agreed that debriefings should be continued as they strengthen the trauma team. Okay, so the proposed policy here that I'm proposing is the scope would be to all Peace Health St. Joseph Medical Center critical care team members. The purpose is to provide a framework for effective communication and teamwork and improved CPR skills among members of the critical care team. The policy would be structured post-resuscitation debriefing will be used following all resuscitation events It shall be used as an educational tool to improve CPR quality and allow members to process the event and return to their normal work assignments. The requirements: structured post-resuscitation debriefing will include, but not be limited to, the following circumstances, which is trauma or code blue incidents in which CPR is provided to a client. The procedure: a well-trained debriefing leader will lead critical care team members in reviewing and analyzing CPR variables, the chest compression, depth, rate, fraction, and leaning. Members will also discuss what they feel went well and what could have gone better in the future to enhance interdisciplinary communication and collaboration. And then the outcomes is the critical care team members will participate in debriefings in a non-judgmental and safe learning environment. So here's an image of the poster that I created, and it also shows my proposed policy. So in summary, the two primary benefits of post-resuscitation debriefings are the quality improvement leading to better outcomes for patients, as well as increased health and wellness for providers and nurses, with enhanced teamwork and job satisfaction and decreased compassion fatigue. Hot debriefing, which occurs immediately following the event, is beneficial because it can allow immediate processing of the event and identification and addressing of equipment and other issues in real time. However, not everybody will be ready to learn at this time and may need time to pass before they're able to recognize strengths and weaknesses and implement those in the future. Cold debriefing, on the other hand, is going to occur within the first few weeks after an event, and it involves the quantitative review of CPR variables to increase CPR quality. And it also has a wider reach for the critical care team, as we talked about. Critical care teams and people that respond to code events are transient and always changing depending on who's working. But it does take more time to plan, and it doesn't provide immediate discussion or feedback that some people may benefit from. Okay, so here are my references, and I really appreciate you listening, and I hope this presentation was interesting and informative. Thank you.